I had a series of mysticism began to sort of enter into my life. And I left my job. I was the head butler at the Waldorf Towers. That's where the president stays. And it was a fancy title for a job that was not very demanding, and that's another story. But it wasn't fulfilling, it wasn't demanding, and it was just sort of like a figurehead type position. I was sort of a place card when other departments in the hotel weren't really doing what they needed to do. And I ended up, over the course of that year, doing many different things and traveling and landing in a new place to live, which was the oldest, one of the oldest townhouses in Manhattan.
Oh, time's up.
I'm done.
Sorry. I'm totally messing up here. Jeff,
All right.
I don't know where this stuff is.
Well, so you don't see an email
I
from
don't see
me?
an email from you. You did send
But
us-
you said that you got it, didn't you?
Yeah, do you ever use another name? Is your Mayor
No.
K?
it's-
Oh, there's Jim,
So
there's
do,
David.
put
Oh,
Jeffrey,
Jeffrey, okay. Jeff.
R-E-Y. There it is.
Jeffrey Gratzon's photos.
Here it is.
Whew.
Ooh, oh boy.
There we go.
I'm all
14
nervous.
attachments.
So
I don't know what order these are
it
in.
doesn't matter,
Okay.
just one at a time is fine.
Okay.
So I ended up moving into one of the oldest townhouses in New York City in the Lower East Side, which at the turn of the last century was the most densely populated place on earth.
Oh, wow.
This is it was a neighborhood very at the edge of the really cool part of New York, Soho and the East Village, and sort of ghetto. And nowadays it's full of like super beyond modern architecture, and it's changed dramatically. So this is 27 years ago, and when I moved in, this house had been brutally renovated many different times, and this was a white sheetrock box that I had moved into, and I began scavenging materials, and the landlord was a good friend of mine who I had, over the course of what I did over the next 7 years in terms of renovating, we had a tumultuous relationship, to say the least, because on the one hand, he loved what I was doing, he loved that I paid rent, but on the other hand, he'd freak it. I think he was bipolar, so it wasn't easy to do what I wanted to do. But at any rate, this was a time in that neighborhood where there was a lot of materials being disposed of in dumpsters, and at night. And my favorite one, actually, each one. Can you go back?
You wanna go back? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, sure.
There's not that many photos here. So I began finding these beams in dumpsters. And so that's old growth wood that was already 100 years old when it was thrown into the dumpster. And then probably from trees that are 100 or 200 years old. And so this is before wood was getting reclaimed like as a thing. Again, this is 27 years ago. And I would find them, and I would trim off whatever part was rotten or wasn't usable. And then, so this was the kitchen. Again, this used to be white sheetrock. Here, if you lower it again, this is lath. You'd find lath, that we were talking about lath and plaster. But that was really cool as a background for lighting. And what I ended up doing is making everything have a place. So I always felt like what would make things really cool is everything belongs where it goes. And there was so much cool stuff to be found in the streets of New York. So we can go to the next one. This is the kitchen looking towards the basically the front of the house. And this is a door that provided light going, and this was had sort of previously been a big empty room. So it became anything but empty. This is like a little, I don't know what you call it, but found in the street. This is this light, that's a piece of glass that was found in a dumpster that, I would just sort of do my own wiring and put lights wherever there was like an empty nook.
Cool.
And, we never burned the place down. This was actually the most famous DJ in New York, who I was totally obsessed with because I was also composing and producing club music at the time. So that was kind of like, I was focused on him in a big way. And eventually this might have been right after he broke my music to the world, which was really cool. Yeah, keep going. See that door again? See all this? Pull it back down if you don't mind.
Beautiful lighting with all this.
So this is all lath. And then because ventilation wasn't great, I had this huge, not huge, but a big fan. So that became a centerpiece, and it created we didn't have AC in there. It was just, but the whole thing was wrapped around to make everything look intentional. You can raise it up a little bit.
Well.
So a lot of this isn't too easy to see, but along the whole left was, I think, about 7 or 8 doors that were thrown out in a dumpster on the street again, down the block. And when these buildings were built initially, this was gas light, so there wasn't as much, people needed interior light. So this is actually a line of doors that I lined up against the wall about 7 inches from the wall that all had empty spaces in them because people were having doors that had windows so that light could penetrate into the interior of buildings. And the funny thing is, the day I found those, there were some guys, I believe that in fact I asked them where they were from Pakistan, and they were loading up the dumpster, and I said, can I get that? And they said, sure. And I said to them, if we were in Pakistan, they would not be throwing this stuff out. And they were like, there's the first American who gets it. I mean, it was really, it totally, we synced. We can go to another one. These are my roommates, and this is what it would look like at dinner time. One of my roommates brought his family Waterford crystal chandelier. And so that was like this piece of real elegance.
Yeah.
You can go to the next. There's the chandelier again, and I did a whole, the ceiling is all shellacked design that I did.
Wow.
It was in a starburst, a sunburst.
Yeah, I see it.
So we had 2 dogs who loved to spread dog chow everywhere. So when I built this, I don't know what you call it, I screwed into the floor these, by the way, I built the floor as well, these sort of receptacles so that they couldn't push their bowls out of the... These are the doors that had these lights inside of them. Those are the doors that were lined up with all kinds of artwork that friends of mine had made that was shellacked inside. There's a little bit more of a closer detail.
Wow.
It's like a museum.
Yeah, it was. Artwork that we would find in the streets.
Beautiful.
We found these casts of that's a plaster cast that, we popped it on the wall, we found it in the street. I mean, this is New York.
We found this dead guy.
Yeah, we found it. It was in the trash.
We
And
thought
that's
it was
actually
plaster.
you're looking up at it as you're going down the stairs.
Dumpster
we talking about?
This is back in the day when there were CDs. Again, I wanted everything to have a place.
I've got that many.
I still have that one.
I'm still trying to collect them.
That's back when we had rack stereo systems.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
all of that went in there. That's the bathroom.
Oh, how beautiful. Jeez.
That's the hot water heater. Again, I wrapped all this stuff around it so it didn't look ghetto.
Yeah. And you heat the water with Christmas lights?
Christmas lights.
Permaculture.
That's my bedroom.
For a couple days.
So one of my, that's me, by the way. And
Ew,
that's
cool.
my bedroom, and of course, I built this really long wall with all of that.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love it.
Jeffrey, you're an artist.
Yeah, you're an
Yeah.
artist,
Yeah,
Jeffrey.
no kidding.
Seeing another side of you here.
So I think that's it.
Yep,
So-
that's it. Thank you.